Welcome back to Stelmo's Rants and Raves. I'm Stelmo. How you doing today? I hope everyone's doing fine. American Thinker has run an article by Brian Jundep, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anyway, the headline reads, "Kill the filibuster or make them talk." Boy, I couldn't agree more. But unfortunately, sometimes it seems like the Republicans are our worst enemy. Now, what I found really interesting in this article uh, is its first line is, well, let me give you the first two lines. It's brief. 5 words. Power unused is power surrendered. That's the reality Senate Republicans now face. You know, all the polls, I don't care if they're Democrat-leaning polls or Republican-leaning polls, but all the polls show the vast majority of Americans believe you should have ID in order to vote. It's a very simple concept. And we know, I mean, yeah, a lot of people are kind of quiet and they're afraid to say what's actually happening. And that is as one party knows that again, the vast majority of Americans do not support their policies. So they have to rely on subterfuge and cheating and breaking the law and doing whatever is necessary. And what do they want the power for? Well, again, we've seen what they want it for. They wanted to pilfer our money, I'm going to say, but it's, of course, money we don't have. So we have to always be borrowing. And pretty soon, we're going to get to the point. And I sort of think we've already passed the point where the government is having to buy some of our own debt because there just are not enough other buyers for it. You know, foreign countries have pretty much sold off the vast majority of our debt that they used to hold. Yeah, there's still some small holdings, but in percentage-wise, it's down. And, you know, people just have to realize they are trying to collapse our economy and the dollar. They want to collapse our government. They want a new socialist utopia. I mean, it's not like they're hiding what their ultimate goal is, because they make it, they verbalize distinctly what their end game is. And, you know, we hear them talk about how they're going to pack the Supreme Court, how they're going to create new states that'll have, provide them 2 more Democrat senators each. Look, if the Democrats ever get back in power, where they hold all 3 branches, this country is cooked. And let me say, I'm not sure that most of these Democrats actually understand what the end all is with their game plan. All they know is they're following the directions of the people who line their pockets with, how should we say, silver and gold they get lined with. And it's sad because all Americans are increasingly proving they're sheep. They're willing to tolerate and do whatever the powers that be want. There are no complaints from what is now seemingly the peanut gallery. You know, yeah, there's a couple people like this Brian Jundep who's saying, look, you got to nuke the filibuster and pass a simple law that the majority of Americans in both parties want. The fact that it's not happening shows you how corrupt what party is? The Republican Party. Because the Republican Party is the one who has the power to do this. They do not need 60 votes to nuke the filibuster. So the 60 vote threshold goes out the window, and they have the votes. Now, whether or not or let me back up and say, when I say they have the votes, they have the requisite number of senators to do it. And of course, we know some of the rhinos out there that are against it. And it's sad that anybody could be against requiring ID to vote. Unless, of course, you want to cheat. If you want to cheat and having ID would prevent your ability to cheat, well, I don't know. This is just, it's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. And, you know, John Thune, in my humble opinion, is a rhino. If John Thune wanted to get this bill passed, he has the power to do it. But he hasn't wielded that power. And I think, you know, the president's in a way, a precarious position right now. You know, he's got this, what I'm going to call an endless war. Because, look, Iran has 47 years of proving to the world that they do not honor their word. You cannot trust them. This war needs to be ended sooner rather than later. And it needs to be ended by victory, which means, and I hate to say this, but it's going to require some boots on the ground. And I mean, I worry about where we're heading. I don't do that much driving, but I'm going to say a couple of weeks ago when I filled up, perhaps not quite 2 weeks ago, I was paying $4.25 a gallon. Now I see it's up to $4.50 a gallon. And it's going to hit $5 and then $6, and it's going to keep going up. The war has to end, and it has to be ended by winning. You can't. And it sounds to me like Donald Trump is ready to surrender. I hate to say that. I'm a Trump supporter, but I'm also one who will speak out and complain when I think somebody that generally I support is doing something wrong. And in this case, I can't understand exactly what the end game is. You know, we bombed them somewhat to smithereens, but they still got rockets, and there's still fire in those rockets. Now, here's a hypothetical, but what happens if some of them rockets that they still continue to fire end up taking out something really serious, something that's going to seriously hamper the flow of oil from the Middle East for years? Who's going to get blamed for that? Donald Trump is the one who is willingly allowing them to regroup, and there's a ceasefire, and yet it seems to me, I read about both sides breaking the ceasefire. So, and I don't know who's right or wrong. I don't even think there should be a ceasefire. We need to win this, and we need to win it sooner than later. You know, one of the things that worries me in the back of my mind, and yeah, I know people are going to say, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist, and perhaps this is somewhat of a conspiracy theory. Now, and I want to clarify something with that term. First off, a theory is merely something that is suggested but hasn't been proven yet. And a conspiracy is merely something, an act that requires two or more people to do. And so, yeah, it is a conspiracy theory in the true names of the word, but they make it sound like it's, some horrible, wicked thing, which it's not. But anyway, what I think and I worry about is I know the dollar is in trouble. Our whole financial system is in trouble. The government is lying to us about all of the numbers and everything. Anybody who goes out there in the real economy can see what's happening. I've said this with both Democrat and Republicans, but you can't hide the economy from the people. The people live the economy. You know, you can tell them things are great every day, 10 times a day, every 10 minutes if you want. But when people go to the store and they're out there driving around, they live the economy. You cannot hide it. And yet, they keep putting out these numbers, which are false, but they're intent on propping up the stock market. And and that's seemingly illogical to me. So I say to myself sometimes, are they looking to destroy everything, to rebuild it back up with some sort of new economic system? And I know this kind of sounds crazy, but they have to know that the dollar's days are numbered. We're $30-some trillion in debt. We're never going to pay it back. Our unfunded liabilities are, you can take that number and raise it exponentially. And every year, that's going to become more and more obvious. And then, of course, you have to also look at all of the debt that is held by states and local governments. I was reading where in Texas you have school districts that are spending money that they should know will never be paid back. And why is that? Because they're small counties. And when you take the population of the county and divide it into the number being borrowed, you would see that there's just no way that this stuff is going to happen. And so every day we get closer to the reckoning. Now, I don't know how the reckoning is going to play out. No, neither does anyone else, because there's something out there called the law of unintended consequences. You do something, but you can't possibly think of all of the ramifications that are going to happen from that something. And so it turns out to be something much different than you planned. And it's very frustrating. I don't know where this country is heading. I don't think it's a good place. And I just hope I'm wrong. That's what I always hope. I hope I'm wrong. But time will tell, and we will see. And with that, I'm going to let you go. Y'all have a great day. Stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. It gets crazier by the day, and it's seemingly no place is safe anymore. But try to stay as safe as possible. Thank you. Bye-bye.